So what I'm going to talk about here today is a strategy to bring that back under the control of IT and put the CIO or the CTO and the IT department back in control of the mobility of journey. But in my opinion, it starts with the user. And the model I'm going to lay out here is one that's very user-centric and puts the user at the top of the pedestal and figures out what are the layers that what are the layers of the decisions we need to make to mobilize our user. So in this case, I'm going to talk about a hypothetical utility. And in the first example, we've got maintenance workers doing job sheeting and capturing information in the field. And we can figure out, for example, that we can save them an hour per day if we give them an unspecified tablet connected to their backend database, which is a maximum database in this case. We could save them an hour a day of not driving back to base, not doing double entry, taking the time lag out of the system. And we can do that across the organization for different roles, field service, inspectors, sales, etc., etc. And if we do the analysis and then bring the line manager for each of these groups together into a workshop and go through what we've learned from interviewing and doing a day in the life of each of these users, an amazing thing happens. We get alignment between the user groups and IT. And now we've got a clear understanding of who needs to be mobilized and what's the economic value of mobilizing each of these groups of people. And it takes all the emotion out of the discussion, because we can say, in this organization, the maintenance guy should go first. That's worth more than giving the managers BI dashboards. That can be a highly emotive conversation without a set of numbers and having done the day in the life of analysis to support it. So now we've got clarity, we've got a starting point, but it's only a starting point. So from here we have to make a layered set of decisions. And we believe the first decision is probably the most important, and it's the enablement, what we call the enable layer. And it's figuring out the architectural building blocks you will need. And there are 5 sets of considerations. One is, what's the architecture you're going to use for building and deploying mobile apps and mobile forms? Secondly, what are you doing about your web services environment and your enterprise service bus to expose interfaces to mobile apps? Thirdly, how far are you going to go with desktop virtualization? Fourthly, what are you doing about Wi-Fi, and how aggressively are you deploying Wi-Fi out to the footprint of your staff? And last, enterprise voice. Are you going to go with some of the commercial enterprise voice solutions? These all impact mobility. The second layer, the time frame for this layer is about 5 to 10 years. So we won't make these decisions very often, and they'll have a long-term impact. The second layer is what we call the manage layer. And the time frame here is shorter. It's 2 to 3 years, and it's decisions around policy, dealing with BYOD or CYOD, security, support, cost control, and governance. And this is pretty important, in particular the security decision. And the key question to ask here is, what do you need to protect? Do you just want to protect the hardware, or do you want to protect your apps, or the information that's cached in your apps? Or do you need to protect the connection from the app back to the data source? Or do you need to protect the identity of the user accessing that information? Or do you need to protect the documents and information we're sharing and collaborating with each other? And getting clarity around what do you need to protect, because that sets up a whole bunch of downstream decisions. The top layer is the empower layer, where we get to make some tactical decisions around which devices, which horizontal productivity apps will we all use, and what will we do about change management? How are we going to change people's behavior and drive adoption of the solutions when we do finally get them out? And we believe this is the right order to make them in. And at the top, if we have architected our environment like this, and we've set up the management framework and the right policies, we get a refreshingly short time frame to make those tactical decisions. It's just 30 to 90 days. Because if we've designed with device agnosticity and bearer independence, then we can change our minds on devices and horizontal apps quite easily. And we could roll out a small fleet of Windows mobile devices next month with some specific solutions. And if we decide to change our minds the following month, we'll go to another kind of device. But we've designed for agnosticity and independence. So you retain a huge degree of flexibility at the user interface. So now I'm going to drill into the enable layer and talk about what we consider to be one of the fundamental decisions here, which is around the application architecture and how you might tackle that.